How can DoD schools provide soldiers and families a quality of life that is commensurate with this service? How can teachers and principals provide Army families with a strong, supportive school environment? Sergeant Major of the Army, Kennith Preston, addresses these questions and more coming up next in The Chat Room. Welcome to The Chat Room. I'm Frank O'Gara, your host today. Army families make many sacrifices. However, quality schools and education are not areas in which they are willing to compromise. This is evident in the support that DoD schools around the world receive from Army leaders at every level of the organization. With me in the studio today is the highest-ranking enlisted soldier in the United States Army, Sergeant Major of the Army, Kennith Preston. Sergeant Major Preston serves as the personal advisor to the Army Chief of Staff on all enlisted-related matters, particularly in areas affecting training and quality of life for soldiers and their families. Welcome, Sergeant Major.
Sir, thanks very much.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you here today with us in the chat room.
Thanks.
Let's talk about education today, Sergeant Major, and I'd like to start by talking about, in your view, where education ranks, okay, in terms of quality of life for military families.
Well, from a quality of life perspective, for all of our soldiers and our families, we have, 52% of the Army now is married, with a family. And soldiers today, when they look at their families, the family is the most important thing in their lives, and that, why they serve and why, they do the things they do. It's about taking care of their family. So the quality of education is very important, and when you look at the nation as a whole, we've got somewhere on the average 75% of our high school seniors today in the nation that graduate from high school. So soldiers, when they look at education, want to ensure that their families and their children receive the best education possible.
Now, how about in terms of readiness for the Army? Do the quality of schools play a role in Army readiness? Absolutely.
And when you look at all the different places in the nation where an individual could raise a family, naturally they're going to pick those locations that have the best schools. And they want to, all of us want to raise our children so that our children have opportunities and have a quality of life that's better than our own. So what we're able to provide with them in the military, specifically in the Army, within the school system, and for our families is very important for quality of life.
And today, given the different events that the Army has been involved with, deployment support, the roles that schools play, how important is that? Okay.
Oh, very important. When I reflect back on my own service and look at my own career over the last 33 years, we've really worked very hard at changing that paradigm. When I came in the Army, there was a philosophy out there: if the Army wanted you to have a family, they would have issued you one. And we've worked very hard. In fact, this last July, we celebrated the 35th anniversary of the all-volunteer force. And so maintaining an all-volunteer force is critical to the defense of our nation. And of course, maintaining that family unit is critical to retention. And when you look now, we're now in our 8th year in the global war on terror. And we've got soldiers deploying all over the world. And one of the things that DoD Schools brings to our Army communities is a sense of structure. It's a sense of family. So that children going to school every day, it's they're part of a larger support structure, not just what they receive at home, but really what they receive from the community.
Well, our principals and our teachers know that we play a critical role, and it's a very important role for the Army, and so we're really glad that we can be there for Army families. You've had a great number of assignments, 30-plus years in the Army, been to lots of locations, and so we've certainly been no stranger to you. You've gotten into our schools, you've got to see our mission and what we do for Army families. From your view, what are we doing well? And also I want to hear from you, where is it that we could improve upon?
Sure. As I look back over my career, and I've got 3 children that I've raised in DoD schools off and on throughout my career. And, I've had, 4 tours in Europe, and all those times that we spent in Europe, as well as the times we spent, in CONUS, one of the things that I see that is good from DoD Schools is the community support network and what we're doing out there right now to really cater to those children that are, the children of military soldiers, particularly with the pace and tempo that we've got going on right now with the deployments. I think in a sense where we could do better, as I travel around the Army and talk to soldiers and their families, is the communication. It's really bonding together between, a DoD school to school, the school-to-school connectivity to ensure that when a child transfers from one school to another school, the connectivity, the transfer of records, the placement of that child going into a school, all those are very important out there right now for our soldiers and our families.
And we know the transition issues are critical for family members, so we'll certainly take that under advisement and work with you on that. Are there other things that you think the Army and DoD could collaborate on together to help us better serve kids, to help us improve schools? I think
when you look at our children today that are tied to military service members, throughout a soldier's career, and we've changed a lot of the dynamic of, as we recruit a soldier, we re-enlist a family, and for those soldiers and their families that stay with us for long periods of time, and whether it's 5, 10, 20, or 30 plus years, those children throughout a military career will move. If they've start from kindergarten all the way through 12th grade, will move somewhere in the neighborhood of 6 to 9 times. So I think one of the things that we can really look at and focus on is that transfer from school to school, and the connectivity to ensure that that child's education is streamlined from education source to education source, and then as they kind of continue and work towards what comes after school. When they graduate from high school, what are the continuing education programs for them as they continue on with furthering their education beyond high school?
Yeah, I think it's a challenge for any school district, but luckily within DoD, we have great relationships and partnerships with the Army, and we can work those issues, and we'll continue to work them in the future. But we have 85,000 kids that are in our DoD schools, but we've got another over 1.1 million dependents of military members, and a large Army population in that as well, okay, yeah, who are going to schools that we say are outside the gate. They're going to local public schools in the United States, or being homeschooled, or perhaps going to private schools. Yeah. What is it that communities, both military and civilian, can do to help some of these local education agencies as they address issues that Army dependents have or that military dependents have in those public schools?
When you look at what the DoD schools have and what they know and understand about military families, particularly now in a time of deployments in support of the global war on terror, there's a lot of things that the school districts outside our gates can learn from our school systems. It's a partnering, it's a sharing of experiences, so that those families that are off post, and that's a large part of our families do live off post, and we provide right now on post somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 to 45% housing available for the population that needs it. So a large part of it, more than 50%, live outside the gates, and so what we're able to provide in those school districts out there, and what those school districts are able to gain from the schools on our post camps and stations is very important.
And through our new partnership endeavor, we welcome any ideas that you may have, Sergeant Major, or any of the Army leaders on ways that we can help in that regard and help address those issues. So we look forward to any input that you might have. Okay.
Sure.
I want to talk a little bit about the Army Covenant, because it's something that you've been talking about for the last year. And in particular, do you see a specific DoD role in helping achieve fulfill the covenant in our Army communities?
Absolutely. And one of the things as I've talked to soldiers and families around the Army, when you look at the Army Community Covenant, it's really a partnering between the Army leadership, our installation leadership, and of course it's the local and state leaders that are there within the communities. And it's really helping to pull together. It's a sharing of ideas from installation to installation, so that good ideas, initiatives that are being done on one post camp or station can be shared with others, so that we can continue to improve the quality of life for soldiers and their families. The other thing is the Interstate Compact on education, and it's been one of those very important initiatives out there to take the governors in each of the states out there and to have them sign a compact where the transfer of a child's school records, their credentials as they move from installation to another installation and state to state, the recognition of those credentials is recognized in that state, in those local school districts, and that's been huge. And now that we've got more than 10 states governors who have signed that compact, it's now initiated, it's in effect, and what we hope to do now is to continue to partner with the rest of those states out there and to bring them on board to really take care of all the installations and our soldiers and families out there, as well as our Army National Guard and Army Reserve soldiers, as potentially they move from unit and organization to different
Absolutely.
units.
They're an important audience that we can't overlook.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Are you pretty optimistic about the remaining states?
I think so. I think it's one of those initiatives that everybody right now is very, very supportive of our soldiers and our families. There's more and more of the American public out there that are really paying attention to the stresses that soldiers and families are under right now as they support the global war on terror. And they're really trying to, I think, partner with the military and look for those initiatives out there to help, to participate and contribute.
You spend a lot of time traveling, of course, and visiting with soldiers and talking to young people, because many of your soldiers are young people not far out of high school themselves. If you had a chance, Sergeant Major, to talk to our high school students, okay,
Yeah.
What is it that you'd tell them about the importance of staying in school and of making education an absolute priority in their lives?
Well, first thing I'd say, stay in school. I mean, that's the bottom line. Stay in school, finish your education, and for a lot of children out there, and I look back, at myself. I was, as I was finishing up high school, my grades were okay, but they didn't warrant getting an academic, or I didn't warrant getting an athletic scholarship at a college or university, but I did good. I had good grades, and so I looked at the military service as an opportunity. And now, as as we recruit and we bring soldiers in, and of course now as soldiers raise families and they raise their children within the military structure, what we want them to do is we want them to continue on furthering their education. And one of the things that I've gained in my life as I've traveled around, not only the Army, but traveled around the world to many, many countries, a lot of things that we take for granted here in our society as Americans is the value of education. And you just don't realize until you get out there in some of these third world countries just how important education is and what education for our children does as a society. So for our children today, stay in school, finish your high school education, and then really look at education as a lifelong experience. And that's one of the things that we're trying to build now in the Army as part of our culture, is that we want our soldiers to continue to learn, lifelong learning throughout their careers, so that you continue to learn, you continue to gain new experiences, because it's those experiences and that learning that really makes them better soldiers and makes them better leaders. And it makes our communities better.
That's a great message. And as you travel in the future, Sergeant Major, I'd ask you to consider, when you're on an installation, particularly overseas, to pop into one of our high schools and or make some arrangements in advance and give that talk to our kids, because I think it would be really meaningful coming from you. And so appreciate it. Appreciate your time coming in today to the chat room.
Yes,
we are absolutely proud to serve Army families all around the world. And we thank you and indeed all Army leaders for the work that they do to help us to ensure that we provide a quality education for all military kids wherever they may be. Thank you so much for your time
Yes, sir.
today.
No, sir. Thanks very much.
You can find more information about DoD Schools on our website, at www.dodia.edu. I'm Frank O'Gara. Thank you for joining us in this edition of The Chat Room.